The conference room felt suffocating as I watched Ryan Thompson present my algorithm to the board of directors like it was his own groundbreaking innovation. Every slide, every line of code, every strategic insight I had poured 8 months of my life into was flowing from his mouth with the confidence of someone who genuinely believed he deserved the credit. My phone, discreetly positioned on the table beside my notebook, captured every word of his elaborate performance. The predictive scheduling feature was the real breakthrough, Ryan explained to the mesmerized executives, gesturing toward the screen displaying my proprietary code. I realized that by implementing machine learning protocols with adaptive behavioral patterns, we could revolutionize how small businesses manage their workflows. I sat perfectly still, my expression neutral, while internally cataloging each stolen concept he presented as his own. The irony wasn't lost on me that the same methodical attention to detail he was now claiming credit for had also ensured that every conversation, every meeting, every development session over the past 8 months had been carefully documented. Ryan had no idea that his grand theft was being recorded in real time. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The journey to this moment of betrayal began 8 months earlier, when I first joined the Streamline AI project team at TechFlow Solutions. My name is Jordan Martinez, and at 28, I had already established myself as one of the most innovative senior developers in Austin's competitive tech scene. 3 years at TechFlow had earned me a reputation for solving impossible problems and delivering results that consistently exceeded expectations. My colleagues called me the Code Whisperer, though I preferred to think of myself as simply thorough. TechFlow Solutions occupied a sleek campus in Austin's tech corridor, where glass buildings reflected the Texas sun and startup energy buzzed through open-plan offices filled with standing desks, whiteboard walls, and the constant hum of ambitious, young professionals. The company had grown from a scrappy startup to a mid-size player in the business automation space, and whispers of an upcoming IPO had everyone working overtime to prove their value. The product development floor where I worked embodied the controlled chaos typical of modern tech companies. Developers clustered around multiple monitors. Product managers darted between meetings, clutching laptops and coffee cups, and the soft clicks of mechanical keyboards provided a constant soundtrack to innovation. My workstation sat in the center of this activity, strategically positioned where I could observe team dynamics while focusing on complex coding challenges. I had always been naturally observant, a trait that served me well in debugging code and understanding user behavior patterns. Growing up as the daughter of 2 engineers in San Antonio, I learned early that details mattered, that problems had logical solutions, and that persistence usually triumphed over politics. These lessons shaped my approach to both programming and workplace relationships, though I was about to discover that not everyone operated with the same ethical framework. The Streamline AI project represented everything I loved about software development. The challenge was to create an automated workflow management system that could learn from small business operations and optimize task scheduling with minimal human intervention. Traditional workflow tools required extensive manual setup and constant adjustment. Our goal was to build something that would watch how a business operated for 2 weeks, then automatically suggest improvements and implement optimizations. The technical complexity was enormous. We needed to capture behavioral data without being intrusive, analyze patterns across dozens of different business types, and create predictive models that could adapt to changing circumstances. Most existing solutions focused on large enterprises with dedicated IT departments. We were targeting small businesses owners who needed powerful automation but lacked technical expertise. When Lisa Chen, our department manager, first presented the project brief to our team, I immediately saw the potential. Small businesses represented a massive underserved market, and truly intuitive automation could revolutionize how they operated. More importantly, I had been working on similar algorithms. During my graduate research before joining TechFlow, the core concepts for predictive task scheduling had been percolating in my mind for years. The team assembled for Streamline AI reflected TechFlow's collaborative culture. Lisa would oversee the project while managing 3 other initiatives simultaneously. Alex Rivera, a brilliant junior developer fresh from UT Austin, brought enthusiasm and fresh perspectives to our brainstorming sessions. 2 other senior developers, Marcus and Elena, would handle front-end design and database architecture respectively. And then there was Ryan Thompson. Ryan had joined TechFlow about 6 months after me, transitioning from a project management role at a larger corporation. He possessed the smooth confidence that often characterized successful project managers, combined with just enough technical knowledge to speak credibly about development challenges without getting lost in implementation details. His background in business development made him valuable for understanding client needs and translating technical capabilities into marketable features. Initially, I appreciated Ryan's communication skills and strategic thinking. He could articulate complex technical concepts to non-technical stakeholders better than most developers, and his experience with enterprise clients provided useful insights into business workflow challenges. During our first few team meetings, Ryan asked thoughtful questions about implementation approaches and potential scalability issues. However, I began noticing subtle patterns in Ryan's behavior that raised occasional concerns. He had a tendency to dominate conversations during brainstorming sessions, often rephrasing other people's ideas as if he were clarifying or improving them. When Alex suggested innovative user interface approaches, Ryan would nod thoughtfully, and then present similar concepts in subsequent meetings as strategic insights he had developed. During technical discussions, Ryan would listen carefully to my explanations about algorithmic approaches, then later reference those same concepts in emails to Lisa as if they were collaborative developments. These instances seemed minor at first, easily attributed to the collaborative nature of product development, where ideas evolved through team discussion. I had worked on enough projects to understand that individual contributions often blended together into collective achievements. The important thing was delivering successful results, not receiving individual recognition for every innovation. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The real work of developing Streamline AI began with extensive research into existing workflow management solutions and behavioral analysis techniques. I spent weeks studying academic papers on predictive modeling, interviewing small business owners about their operational challenges, and experimenting with different machine learning approaches. The breakthrough came when I realized that traditional workflow analysis focused on optimizing existing processes rather than identifying fundamentally better approaches. Most businesses developed workflows through trial and error, gradually, settling into patterns that worked reasonably well but weren't necessarily optimal. My insight was to create algorithms that could recognize these suboptimal patterns and suggest improvements based on successful approaches used by similar businesses. Instead of just automating existing workflows, we could actually make them more efficient. The technical implementation required developing new approaches to behavioral pattern recognition, creating databases of optimized workflows across different business types, and building machine learning models that could identify improvement opportunities without disrupting essential operations. I worked 12-hour days for weeks, coding and testing different algorithmic approaches until I found combinations that produced consistently reliable results. During this intensive development period, Ryan maintained regular involvement in our team meetings and progress reviews. He asked detailed questions about my algorithmic approaches, took extensive notes during my technical presentations, and offered strategic insights about how different features might appeal to potential clients. His business perspective proved valuable for prioritizing development efforts and ensuring that technical innovations aligned with market needs. I appreciated Ryan's engagement and assumed his thorough documentation of our technical discussions reflected his commitment to understanding the project completely. As project manager, he needed to track progress across multiple technical work streams and communicate developments to upper management. His detailed questions about implementation Approaches seemed like evidence of professional diligence rather than anything more concerning. The collaborative atmosphere during our development phase felt genuinely productive. Alex contributed creative solutions to user interface challenges that enhanced the overall user experience significantly. Marcus designed elegant front-end components that made complex functionality feel intuitive. Elena built robust database architectures that could handle the massive data processing requirements efficiently. Ryan coordinated these efforts effectively, ensuring that different technical components integrated smoothly and that project milestones remained on schedule. My algorithmic work formed the core of the entire system, but I valued how other team members' contributions enhanced its practical application. The predictive scheduling algorithms I developed were sophisticated, but they needed Alex's intuitive interfaces, Marcus's elegant design, and Elena's efficient data management to become truly useful for small business owners. Ryan's strategic insights helped ensure that our technical innovations addressed real market needs rather than just interesting programming challenges. As we approached the halfway point in our development timeline, the project had exceeded all expectations. My algorithmic innovations were producing remarkable results in beta testing, consistently identifying workflow improvements that increased business efficiency by 15 to 20%. Small business owners who participated in our pilot program reported significant time savings and improved operational outcomes within weeks of implementation. The success attracted attention from TechFlow's executive team and potential investors interested in the upcoming IPO. Our project was selected for inclusion in several high-profile presentations to board members and strategic partners. The recognition felt gratifying after months of intensive technical work, and I looked forward to presenting our innovations to audiences who could appreciate their significance. However, I began noticing changes in how our project was being discussed in broader company communications. Executive summaries and investor presentations increasingly emphasized strategic insights and business development aspects rather than technical innovations. When our work was featured in company newsletters or investor materials, the focus centered on market potential and competitive advantages rather than the algorithmic breakthroughs that made everything possible. These shifts in emphasis didn't seem intentionally misleading at first. Business communications naturally focused on market opportunities and strategic value rather than technical implementation details. Investors wanted to understand revenue potential and competitive positioning, not the intricacies of machine learning algorithms. The increasing business focus seemed like a natural evolution as our project moved from development toward commercialization. Ryan's role in these communications became more prominent as the project gained visibility within TechFlow and among potential investors. His ability to articulate business value and strategic implications made him a natural spokesperson for presenting our work to non-technical audiences. I remained focused on perfecting the technical implementation, while Ryan handled most external communications and strategic positioning discussions. This division of responsibilities felt logical and played to our respective strengths. I preferred working on complex technical challenges rather than navigating corporate politics or investor relations. Ryan's background in business development made him better equipped to handle strategic communications and market positioning discussions. Our collaboration seemed to be evolving into an effective partnership where technical innovation and business strategy complemented each other naturally. During this period, I maintained my habit of documenting development progress thoroughly, partly from natural inclination toward detailed record-keeping, and partly from graduate school training in research methodology. I kept comprehensive logs of algorithmic development approaches, saved all email communications about technical decisions, and recorded notes from team meetings where significant strategic or technical discussions occurred. This documentation habit had served me well throughout my career, providing references for future projects and evidence of contribution during performance reviews. The meticulous record-keeping also reflected my engineering background and natural personality traits. My parents had instilled appreciation for systematic approaches to complex problems, and graduate research had reinforced the importance of documenting methodology and maintaining clear records of intellectual development. These habits felt automatic rather than strategic, simply part of how I approached professional work. As our development timeline progressed toward the final phase, anticipation grew throughout TechFlow about the potential impact of Streamline AI on the company's growth trajectory and IPO prospects. Our project represented one of the most innovative products in TechFlow's portfolio, with potential applications across numerous small business sectors. Early pilot results suggested that successful commercialization could generate substantial revenue and establish TechFlow as a leader in small business automation solutions. The pressure to deliver exceptional results intensified as company leadership recognized the strategic importance of our project. Lisa began attending more team meetings and requesting frequent progress updates for her communications with senior management. Executive presentations were scheduled to showcase our innovations to board members and potential strategic partners. The entire team felt the weight of expectations as we worked to finalize technical implementation and prepare for broader market introduction. Throughout this intensifying environment, Ryan's involvement in strategic communications continued, expanding. He participated in meetings with senior management, contributed to investor presentation materials, and represented our project in various company-wide initiatives. His visibility within TechFlow's leadership circles grew substantially as the commercial potential of Streamline AI became more apparent to executives and board members. Meanwhile, I remained focused primarily on technical perfection and algorithmic optimization. The core predictive scheduling algorithms required constant refinement to handle edge cases and improve accuracy across different business types. My work involved analyzing vast amounts of behavioral data, adjusting machine learning parameters, and testing system performance under various operational conditions. This intensive technical focus left little time for strategic communications or corporate relationship building. The approaching deadline for our major presentation to TechFlow's board of directors created additional pressure throughout the team. This presentation would determine not only the future of Streamline AI, but also potential recognition and advancement opportunities for team members. Success could lead to expanded project budgets, promotion opportunities, and significant visibility within the company. Failure might result in project cancellation and reassignment to less prestigious initiatives. As we prepared materials for this crucial presentation, Ryan took the lead in organizing content and coordinating with executive support staff. His experience with corporate presentations and understanding of board member expectations made him the natural choice for managing this high-stakes communication. I focused on preparing technical demonstrations and ensuring that our algorithms would perform flawlessly during live testing scenarios. The week before our board presentation, Ryan scheduled several rehearsal sessions where team members would practice their portions of the overall presentation. These rehearsals were intended to ensure smooth coordination between different segments and identify potential issues before the actual presentation. I prepared detailed explanations of algorithmic approaches and planned to demonstrate key features of the predictive scheduling system. However, during our final rehearsal session, Ryan suggested modifications to the presentation structure that would streamline the technical content and emphasize strategic value more prominently. He recommended that I prepare shorter technical summaries while he handled more detailed explanations of business applications and market potential. The changes seemed reasonable given the audience's likely focus on commercial viability rather than implementation details. What I didn't realize during these preparation sessions was that Ryan had been positioning himself as the primary technical innovator behind our algorithmic breakthroughs. In his communications with Lisa and senior management, he had gradually shifted from describing collaborative development processes to emphasizing his strategic insights and technical contributions. The comprehensive documentation I had maintained throughout our development process would soon prove invaluable in ways I never anticipated. The morning of our board presentation arrived with the typical mixture of excitement and anxiety that accompanied high-stakes corporate communications. TechFlow's executive conference room had been prepared with presentation equipment, detailed agenda materials, and refreshments for board members and senior management. Our team gathered early to conduct final technical checks and review presentation materials one last time. As we entered the conference room where my 8 months of innovative work would be presented to TechFlow's leadership, I had no idea that I was about to witness the most audacious act of intellectual theft I had ever encountered. The small recording device in my phone, positioned innocuously beside my notebook, was about to capture evidence that would eventually transform not only my career, but my understanding of workplace dynamics and the importance of protecting intellectual property. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test everything I had learned about persistence, documentation, and standing up for principle in corporate environments where ambition sometimes overshadowed ethics. The moment Ryan finished his presentation to the board, claiming credit for every algorithmic innovation I had developed over the past 8 months, I knew my approach to this situation would require the same methodical precision I brought to coding complex systems. The applause from the executives felt like a physical blow, but I maintained my composed expression while my mind shifted into analytical mode. This wasn't just about wounded pride or professional recognition anymore. This was about systematic intellectual theft that demanded an equally systematic response. Walking back to my desk after the presentation, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The initial shock and anger were transforming into something more purposeful. I had spent my entire career solving problems through careful analysis and strategic implementation. This situation would be no different, except instead of debugging code, I would be documenting and ultimately exposing Ryan's deception. The same attention to detail that made me an exceptional developer would now serve a very different purpose. I sat at my workstation and opened a new encrypted folder on my personal laptop, separate from any TechFlow systems. The folder was titled, Simply Project Documentation with Today's Date. Inside, I began organizing the extensive records I had maintained throughout the Streamline AI development process. Email threads, meeting notes, code repositories with timestamp data, and most importantly, the audio recordings from our team sessions that I had been collecting since the project's inception. My habit of recording meetings had started innocently enough. As someone who processed information better when I could review it later, I had begun using my phone to capture technical discussions so I could revisit complex algorithmic concepts without having to interrupt conversations with constant note-taking. The recordings helped me focus on understanding new ideas rather than frantically scribbling incomplete notes. What began as a learning tool was about to become evidence of the most elaborate professional betrayal I had ever witnessed. The first recording I reviewed was from our initial Streamline AI brainstorming session 8 months ago. Ryan's voice came through clearly as he asked thoughtful questions about workflow analysis approaches and machine learning applications. Even then, his questions had been unusually detailed, probing into specific technical methodologies that seemed beyond what a project manager would typically need to understand. At the time, I had appreciated his thorough engagement. Now, I recognized it as intelligence gathering. Over the following weeks, I systematically reviewed months of recorded meetings, email exchanges, and development documentation. The pattern of Ryan's gradual appropriation of my ideas became unmistakably clear when viewed chronologically. In early meetings, he would ask questions about my algorithmic approaches with genuine curiosity. By mid-project, he was rephrasing my concepts as collaborative insights during team discussions. In recent weeks, he had begun presenting these same concepts to upper management as strategic innovations he had developed independently. The most damning evidence came from a recording of a conversation Ryan had with Lisa 2 weeks before our board presentation. I had arrived early to a scheduled team meeting and was setting up my laptop when Ryan and Lisa entered the conference room, apparently continuing a discussion they had begun elsewhere. My phone was already recording for the meeting, capturing their conversation before they realized I was present. The predictive scheduling breakthrough really came from understanding behavioral patterns in small business operations, Ryan was explaining to Lisa. I realized that we needed to look beyond traditional workflow optimization and focus on identifying fundamentally better approaches. The machine learning algorithms I developed can recognize suboptimal patterns and suggest improvements based on successful approaches from similar businesses. Every word he spoke described my innovations using my exact terminology and conceptual frameworks. Lisa responded with enthusiasm about Ryan's technical insights and strategic vision. When they noticed me in the room, Ryan smoothly transitioned to discussing general project status without missing a beat. The casual confidence with which he claimed ownership of my work was breathtaking in its audacity. That evening, I worked until midnight, organizing evidence and creating a comprehensive timeline of Ryan's intellectual theft. The documentation revealed a sophisticated pattern of appropriation that had evolved gradually over months. Ryan had been careful never to explicitly claim credit for my innovations in written communications where evidence could be preserved. Instead, he used verbal communications and strategic omissions to create impressions of his technical leadership while maintaining plausible deniability. His method was actually quite clever from a purely tactical perspective. During team meetings, Ryan would listen carefully to my technical explanations, then later reference similar concepts in conversations with management as insights he had developed through strategic analysis. He never directly contradicted my contributions in team settings, but he systematically excluded mention of my role when communicating with upper management about project innovations. The email evidence was particularly revealing when examined chronologically. Early project communications showed Ryan asking detailed questions about my algorithmic approaches and requesting clarification on technical implementation strategies. These emails established a clear record of his learning process as I explained complex concepts he initially didn't understand. Later emails to Lisa and other managers presented these same concepts as strategic insights Ryan had developed through market analysis and business development expertise. Most infuriating was discovering that Ryan had been copying technical documentation I created and incorporating it into presentation materials for upper management, with my name removed and his insights emphasized. Code comments I had written to explain algorithmic logic appeared verbatim in Ryan's strategic summaries, presented as evidence of his technical understanding. Even specific terminology I had coined for describing predictive scheduling features showed up in Ryan's communications as examples of his innovation in business automation concepts. As I compiled this evidence, I also began documenting the broader impact of Ryan's deception on team dynamics and project recognition. Alex had mentioned feeling overlooked during recent management communications about Streamline AI, despite contributing significant user interface innovations. Marcus and Elena had also noticed that their technical contributions were receiving less recognition as Ryan's profile within the company increased. The entire development team was being marginalized, while Ryan positioned himself as the primary innovator behind our collective success. The pattern extended beyond just claiming credit for my algorithmic work. Ryan had systematically appropriated insights and innovations from every team member, repackaging our collaborative achievements as evidence of his individual strategic brilliance. He had created a narrative where the technical team implemented his vision rather than acknowledging that our innovations had driven the project's success from the beginning. This realization transformed my response from personal vindication to professional responsibility. Ryan's deception wasn't just stealing credit from me individually, it was undermining the recognition and career advancement opportunities of the entire development team. Alex, in particular, deserved acknowledgement for user interface innovations that had significantly enhanced the system's usability. Marcus and Elena had solved complex technical challenges that made the entire project possible. Ryan's narrative erased all of our contributions in favor of promoting his individual brand within TechFlow. I began reaching out carefully to my teammates to understand their perspectives on recent project communications and management recognition. Alex confirmed feeling marginalized in recent discussions about Streamline AI's success, noting that technical contributions seemed less valued than strategic insights in management communications. Marcus mentioned frustration with how front-end innovations were being presented as implementation of strategic vision rather than creative problem-solving. Elena had noticed similar patterns with database architecture contributions. None of my teammates were aware of the extent of Ryan's systematic appropriation, but they had all noticed shifts in how their contributions were being characterized in communications with upper management. The conversation revealed that Ryan had been conducting individual meetings with Lisa and senior managers, presenting consolidated summaries of project progress that emphasized strategic insights while minimizing technical innovation details. During this period of evidence compilation and team consultation, I maintained completely normal professional interactions with Ryan. I participated in team meetings, responded to his project coordination requests, and continued collaborating on final development tasks without revealing any awareness of his deception. This required significant emotional control, especially during moments when Ryan would casually reference his algorithmic innovations in team discussions, as if everyone understood and accepted his ownership of my work. The psychological challenge of maintaining this facade while documenting Ryan's betrayal was more difficult than I had anticipated. Every team meeting where he casually claimed credit for my innovations felt like a small emotional assault. Every email where he presented my technical insights as his strategic vision required conscious effort to respond professionally rather than confrontationally. I was essentially living a double life, maintaining collaborative appearances while secretly building a case against someone who had systematically stolen months of my intellectual work. The most challenging aspect was resisting the urge to confront Ryan immediately with evidence of his deception. My instinct was to present the recordings and documentation directly, demanding acknowledgement and correction of the false narrative he had created. However, I recognized that premature confrontation might allow Ryan to devise explanations or countermeasures that could undermine the effectiveness of my evidence. Strategic patience would serve my objectives better than emotional satisfaction. Instead, I focused on strengthening my documentation and expanding my understanding of how Ryan's deception had affected company perceptions of our project's development. I scheduled informal conversations with colleagues in other departments who had heard presentations about Streamline AI, asking casual questions about their understanding of the project's technical leadership and innovation sources. These conversations revealed that Ryan's narrative had indeed become the accepted version of our project's development history throughout TechFlow. The scope of Ryan's deception was actually more extensive than I had initially realized. He had not only claimed credit for my algorithmic innovations, but had also systematically rewritten the entire history of our project development. According to the narrative he had promoted throughout the company, Streamline AI emerged from his strategic vision of small business automation needs, which he then guided the technical team to implement through his business development expertise and market analysis insights. This false narrative had significant implications beyond individual recognition. Ryan's version positioned him as the intellectual leader of one of TechFlow's most promising innovations, potentially affecting promotion opportunities, project assignments, and even equity distributions related to the upcoming IPO. His deception wasn't just about taking credit for past work. It was about positioning himself for future opportunities based on false claims of technical leadership and innovation capability. The financial implications became clearer when I learned that TechFlow was considering individual equity bonuses for employees whose innovations contributed significantly to IPO valuation. Streamline AI was expected to be a major factor in investor interest and company valuation. If Ryan's false narrative became accepted fact, he could receive substantial financial rewards based on my intellectual contributions, while the actual innovators received standard employee compensation packages. This discovery added urgency to my documentation efforts and strategic planning. I began researching TechFlow's intellectual property policies, employee recognition procedures, and dispute resolution processes. The company had clear guidelines about crediting technical innovations and protecting employee intellectual contributions. But I needed to understand how these policies would apply to situations involving systematic misrepresentation of collaborative work contributions. I also started documenting current company communications about Streamline AI to establish the extent to which Ryan's false narrative had become institutionalized within TechFlow's understanding of the project. Executive communications, investor, presentation materials, and internal company newsletters all reflected Ryan's version of events, presenting him as the strategic visionary behind our technical innovations. Correcting this narrative would require more than just presenting evidence of my contributions. It would require systematically dismantling a false story that had become accepted throughout the organization. The psychological strain of maintaining normal professional relationships while secretly documenting widespread deception was affecting my work performance and personal well-being. I found myself constantly analyzing every interaction with Ryan and other team members for additional evidence or insights into the scope of his misrepresentation. Sleep became difficult as I mentally rehearsed confrontation scenarios and worried about potential complications from my eventual evidence presentation. Alex noticed my increased tension during team meetings and asked if everything was okay during a casual conversation after work. I had to be careful not to reveal my investigation while acknowledging that recent project dynamics had been stressful. The conversation reinforced my sense that other team members were also feeling the effects of Ryan's manipulation, even if they didn't fully understand its systematic nature. To manage the emotional burden, I began treating my investigation like a complex debugging challenge, focusing on the analytical aspects rather than the personal betrayal elements. This mental framework helped maintain objectivity while organizing evidence and planning strategic responses. I created detailed timelines, cross-referenced multiple sources of documentation, and developed systematic approaches to presenting evidence that would be difficult to dispute or explain away. The technical aspects of evidence compilation were actually quite engaging from a problem-solving perspective. Organizing months of recordings, emails, and documentation into a coherent narrative required the same logical thinking and attention to detail that I brought to algorithmic development. Creating clear presentations of complex information for non-technical audiences paralleled the communication challenges involved in explaining technical innovations to business stakeholders. 3 weeks after Ryan's board presentation, I received an email from Lisa requesting a one-on-one meeting to discuss my career development and future project assignments. The timing seemed suspicious, potentially indicating that Ryan had been managing perceptions of my technical contributions in preparation for reassigning me to less prominent projects. This meeting could provide an opportunity to begin presenting evidence, but it also represented a potential trap if Ryan had been undermining my reputation with management. I spent considerable time preparing for this meeting, organizing key evidence pieces that could be presented professionally without appearing overly confrontational. The goal was to raise questions about project credit attribution while gauging Lisa's awareness of the true development history. Depending on her responses, I could calibrate how much evidence to present and whether to request formal investigation of the credit attribution issues. The night before my meeting with Lisa, I reviewed my complete documentation one final time, ensuring that every claim could be supported with multiple forms of evidence. The case was overwhelming when viewed comprehensively. Ryan had systematically stolen credit for innovations he could never have developed independently, using sophisticated manipulation techniques to create false narratives about technical leadership and strategic vision. What remained unclear was how TechFlow's management would respond when confronted with evidence of this deception. Ryan had cultivated strong relationships with upper management and positioned himself as a strategic asset for the company's growth plans. My evidence was irrefutable, but organizational politics might complicate the response to Ryan's intellectual theft. Some managers might prefer to minimize disruption rather than acknowledge that they had been systematically deceived about one of their most important projects. I realized that my strategic approach needed to account for these political realities while maintaining focus on factual evidence and professional standards. The goal wasn't just to expose Ryan's deception, but to ensure that technical innovations received proper attribution and that intellectual property standards were upheld within TechFlow. This situation represented a test of the company's commitment to ethical practices and fair recognition of employee contributions. As I prepared for what could be the beginning of a complex confrontation process, I felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. The evidence was comprehensive and irrefutable. The systematic nature of Ryan's deception was clearly documented. The impact on team recognition and company understanding was substantial. Now the question was whether TechFlow's management would prioritize truth and ethical standards over political convenience and established narratives. The documentation I had compiled represented more than just evidence of intellectual theft. It was a comprehensive record of how innovative technical work could be systematically appropriated through strategic manipulation and organizational politics. The recordings, emails, and timeline materials told a story that extended beyond individual betrayal to reveal broader issues about recognition, attribution, and protection of intellectual contributions in collaborative technical environments. Tomorrow's meeting with Lisa would begin the process of determining whether systematic documentation and evidence compilation could overcome months of strategic deception and false narrative construction. The same methodical approach that had produced breakthrough algorithmic innovations would now be tested in an entirely different arena, where technical truth would compete with political perception and professional relationships. The email from Michael Davis arrived at 7:32 in the morning, marked urgent with a subject line that made my coffee suddenly taste bitter. Streamline AI patent application, technical lead consultation required. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the message from TechFlow's Chief Technology Officer, requesting my immediate input on patent documentation that Ryan had apparently initiated without consulting the development team. Jordan, the email read, Ryan Thompson has submitted preliminary patent applications for the Streamline AI predictive algorithms, listing himself as primary inventor. However, our legal team needs technical verification of invention timelines and contribution details before proceeding. Please review the attached documentation and provide detailed feedback by end of business today. This is time-sensitive due to patent filing deadlines. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Ryan hadn't just stolen credit for my work in presentations and internal communications. He was now attempting to legally establish ownership of my algorithmic innovations through patent applications that could be worth millions if Streamline AI achieved its projected market success. The audacity was breathtaking, but the implications were terrifying. Patents would create permanent legal barriers to my recognition and potential financial benefits from innovations I had developed independently. The attached documentation revealed the full scope of Ryan's deception. He had prepared detailed patent applications describing my predictive scheduling algorithms, machine learning implementations, and behavioral analysis techniques as inventions he had conceived and developed. The technical descriptions were sophisticated, clearly copied from documentation I had created throughout the development process, but presented as evidence of Ryan's innovative thinking and technical expertise. Most disturbing was discovering that Ryan had been preparing these patent applications for weeks, working with external legal consultants while maintaining normal project collaboration with our development team. He had essentially been conducting parallel legal proceedings to establish intellectual property ownership, while continuing to participate in team meetings as if nothing unusual was happening. The level of premeditation was staggering. I immediately forwarded Michael's email to my personal account and began organizing relevant evidence from my comprehensive documentation files. The patent application timeline would actually work in my favor, since I had maintained detailed records of algorithmic development processes with timestamps that clearly predated Ryan's claimed invention dates. My code repositories, email communications, and recorded meetings provided irrefutable evidence of the true innovation timeline. The morning team meeting proceeded normally, with Ryan displaying no indication that he had initiated patent proceedings or received any communication from upper management about intellectual property verification. His casual demeanor while discussing routine project updates felt surreal, given that he was simultaneously attempting to steal legal ownership of my technical innovations. I maintained professional composure while internally cataloging this additional evidence of his deceptive behavior. Alex approached me after the meeting with concerning news that added another dimension to the unfolding crisis. "Jordan, something weird happened yesterday," she began quietly. "I got a call from someone claiming to be conducting reference checks for Ryan's application to a senior technical position at another company. They asked detailed questions about his technical contributions to streamline AI and his leadership of algorithmic development work. The revelation that Ryan was leveraging stolen credit to pursue external opportunities while simultaneously filing patents added urgency to my response timeline. He wasn't just appropriating recognition within TechFlow. He was using false claims about my innovations to advance his career prospects elsewhere. The systematic nature of his deception was becoming clearer, suggesting months of strategic planning rather than opportunistic credit stealing. I spent my lunch break reviewing the patent application materials more thoroughly, cross-referencing Ryan's claims with my documented development timeline. Every technical innovation he claimed to have invented was clearly attributable to my work, with extensive documentation, proving both conception dates and implementation processes. The patent applications actually provided additional evidence of intellectual theft, since they included technical details that Ryan could only have, obtained through access to my confidential development documentation. The afternoon brought an unexpected complication when Lisa scheduled an emergency team meeting to discuss intellectual property coordination and patent strategy. The timing suggested that upper management was beginning to recognize inconsistencies in Ryan's claims, possibly triggered by technical review processes or legal due diligence requirements. This meeting could provide an opportunity to present evidence, but it also represented potential risks if Ryan had prepared explanations for the inconsistencies. During the meeting, Lisa began by explaining TechFlow's intellectual property policies and the importance of accurate invention attribution for patent applications. Her tone suggested awareness of potential issues without explicitly acknowledging specific problems. Ryan participated normally, asking questions about patent procedures and timelines without revealing any concern about his fraudulent applications. The discussion became more pointed when Lisa addressed technical contribution documentation requirements. It's essential that patent applications accurately reflect individual contributions and invention timelines, she emphasized while looking directly at Ryan. Our legal team needs comprehensive evidence to support patent claims, including development records, technical documentation, and collaboration histories. Ryan responded confidently, offering to provide additional documentation of his technical leadership and innovation development processes. His willingness to double down on false claims, even when facing potential legal scrutiny, demonstrated remarkable confidence in his deceptive strategy or complete lack of awareness regarding the strength of evidence against him. I requested a private conversation with Lisa immediately following the team meeting, explaining that I had concerns about patent attribution accuracy that required confidential discussion. Her expression suggested she had been expecting this conversation, possibly indicating that Michael Davis had already shared details about the patent verification process and potential discrepancies in Ryan's applications. Lisa's office felt like a courtroom as I began presenting evidence of Ryan's systematic intellectual theft. I started with the most recent patent applications, demonstrating how technical descriptions had been copied directly from my confidential development documentation. The timestamps and revision histories provided clear evidence that Ryan's patent claims were based on innovations he had learned about, rather than developed independently. "This is extremely serious," Lisa responded after reviewing initial evidence samples. Patent fraud can have legal consequences beyond just internal personnel issues. If Ryan has misrepresented invention ownership in formal patent applications, we're dealing with potential federal intellectual property violations. I continued presenting evidence chronologically, showing how Ryan's appropriation of my work had evolved from casual credit stealing in team meetings to systematic narrative, manipulation in management communications, culminating in fraudulent patent applications. The audio recordings were particularly compelling, capturing Ryan's explicit claims of technical ownership during conversations with upper management. Lisa's reaction evolved from concern to anger as the scope of Ryan's deception became clear. "How long has this been going on?" she asked. "And why didn't you report these issues earlier?" I explained my decision to document evidence thoroughly before presenting accusations, emphasizing the importance of building an irrefutable case rather than making premature claims that could be disputed or explained away. The conversation shifted to immediate action items and investigation procedures. Lisa indicated that she would need to involve human resources, legal affairs, and possibly external counsel, given the patent fraud implications. She also requested copies of all evidence for official review while ensuring that I maintained backup documentation for potential legal proceedings. "We'll need to halt the patent applications immediately," Lisa decided, "and conduct a comprehensive investigation of project contributions and recognition accuracy. This could affect multiple ongoing initiatives if Ryan's pattern extends beyond Streamline AI." Her response suggested that upper management was taking the situation seriously and prioritizing factual accuracy over political convenience. The remainder of the afternoon was consumed by meetings with various tech flow departments as news of the intellectual property investigation spread through management channels. Human Resources initiated formal complaint procedures while Legal Affairs began reviewing patent applications and related documentation. The scope of investigation expanded rapidly as the implications of systematic intellectual theft became apparent to company leadership. Sarah Williams from Human Resources conducted an extensive interview regarding my evidence compilation and Ryan's deceptive behavior patterns. Her questions were thorough and professional, focusing on factual documentation rather than emotional impact or personal grievances. The formal complaint process provided structure for presenting evidence systematically while ensuring appropriate legal protections for all parties involved. The legal team's review was more intensive, requiring detailed explanations of technical, innovation processes and collaborative development procedures. They were particularly interested in the recorded conversations where Ryan explicitly claimed ownership of my algorithmic work, since these recordings could provide crucial evidence for potential patent fraud proceedings or civil litigation. By late afternoon, word had begun circulating throughout the office that Ryan was involved in some kind of investigation related to intellectual property issues. His demeanor during subsequent interactions became noticeably more defensive, though. He maintained appearances of normal professional behavior. The tension was palpable during our final team meeting of the day, with everyone clearly aware that something significant was happening, despite limited official information. Alex approached me privately as we prepared to leave the office, expressing concern about the investigation rumors and their potential impact on our project timeline and team dynamics. I provided general reassurance without revealing specific details about the intellectual property investigation, emphasizing that the situation involved ensuring accurate attribution of technical contributions rather than any project performance issues. The evening brought an unexpected development when I received a call from Marcus, who reported receiving contact from someone investigating Ryan's technical background and contributions to Streamline AI. The caller had asked detailed questions about collaborative development processes and individual contribution assessment, suggesting that external verification of Ryan's claims was already underway through multiple channels. This information indicated that Ryan's job application process at another company had triggered reference checks that were revealing inconsistencies in his claimed technical leadership and innovation ownership. The external investigation could provide additional validation of my evidence, while potentially exposing Ryan's deceptive practices to prospective employers and industry contacts. I spent the evening reviewing my evidence organization one final time, ensuring that all documentation was properly categorized and cross-referenced for the formal investigation process. The comprehensive nature of my records was proving invaluable for supporting official review procedures while providing detailed timeline verification for legal analysis. The psychological relief of finally presenting evidence after weeks of secret documentation was substantial, though tempered by anxiety about potential retaliation or professional consequences. Can you walk us through your development process for this innovation? The question seemed straightforward, but I knew it was designed to elicit specific claims that could be directly contradicted with documented evidence. Ryan launched into a detailed explanation of algorithmic development approaches, describing machine learning techniques and behavioral analysis methods with impressive fluency. However, his explanation was essentially a sophisticated recitation of concepts he had learned from my presentations and documentation, rather than genuine technical insight into development processes. The legal representatives took detailed notes while maintaining carefully neutral expressions. "That's interesting," Michael continued. "According to your patent application, you conceived this approach in March and began implementation in April. However, we have some documentation that suggests a different timeline." He removed several printed emails from the folder, sliding them across the table to Ryan. "These are email exchanges where you're asking detailed questions about predictive scheduling concepts and requesting clarification on machine learning implementation strategies." Ryan's face remained composed as he reviewed the emails, but I noticed his breathing become slightly more rapid. "Well, yes. I was consulting with team members to refine my ideas and ensure optimal implementation approaches. That's standard collaborative development procedure." His explanation was plausible on the surface, designed to reframe evidence of learning as evidence of leadership consultation. Sarah Williams spoke for the first time, her voice crisp and professional. "Ryan, we also have concerns about external communications regarding your technical contributions to streamline AI. We've received inquiries from prospective employers seeking to verify claims you've made about leading algorithmic development and innovation processes." Ryan's composure faltered slightly as the scope of investigation became clearer. "I've been exploring some external opportunities," Ryan admitted carefully. "My communications have emphasized my strategic leadership role in the project, which is accurate based on my project management responsibilities and technical coordination activities." He was still attempting to maintain his false narrative, while acknowledging the investigation's broader scope. David Park's expression hardened as he opened his own folder. "Ryan, we have audio recordings of conversations where you explicitly claim to have invented the predictive scheduling algorithms and describe them as your personal innovations. These recordings contradict your current explanation about strategic leadership versus technical invention." The mention of audio evidence caused Ryan's face to pale noticeably. One of the legal representatives, a woman with silver hair and penetrating eyes, introduced herself as Patricia Monroe from the intellectual property law firm representing TechFlow. "Mr. Thompson, patent fraud is a federal offense with serious legal consequences. Before we proceed further, you should understand that anything you say here could be used in potential criminal proceedings as well as civil litigation." The legal warning transformed the atmosphere completely. Ryan's confident demeanor evaporated as the reality of his situation became undeniable. "I think there may be some misunderstanding about my role in the project," he began weakly. "Perhaps I've been unclear in some communications about the collaborative nature of our development process." Michael removed a laptop from his briefcase and opened an audio file. "Let's listen to a conversation you had with Lisa 3 weeks ago," announced. Ryan's own voice filled the conference room, clearly and unmistakably claiming ownership of my algorithmic innovations, using technical terminology and conceptual frameworks I had developed independently. The predictive scheduling breakthrough really came from understanding behavioral patterns in small business operations," Ryan's recorded voice explained. "I realized that we needed to look beyond traditional workflow optimization and focus on identifying fundamentally better approaches. The machine learning algorithms I developed can recognize suboptimal patterns and suggest improvements." The recording continued for several minutes, with Ryan systematically claiming credit for every major innovation I had contributed to the Streamline AI project. His confidence in the recorded conversation contrasted starkly with his current pallor and obvious distress. The evidence was irrefutable and comprehensive, leaving no room for alternative explanations or strategic reframing. Patricia Monroe paused the recording and fixed Ryan with a steady gaze. "Mr. Thompson, this conversation clearly contradicts your current claims about strategic leadership versus technical invention. You explicitly describe developing algorithms and realizing innovative approaches. How do you explain this discrepancy?" Ryan's response was barely audible. "I may have misspoken about the extent of my technical contributions. The pressure to demonstrate strategic value sometimes led to overstating my role in specific innovations." His admission was significant, but still fell short of acknowledging the systematic nature of his deception. Ryan's willingness to pursue fraudulent patent applications suggested a level of desperation or entitlement that could lead to unpredictable responses when confronted with irrefutable evidence of his deception. The next morning arrived with an email from Michael Davis requesting an urgent meeting to discuss technical verification of patent applications and potential intellectual property violations. The message indicated that senior management was treating the situation with appropriate seriousness, while moving quickly to address potential legal liabilities and corporate policy violations. Ryan's absence from the morning team meeting was conspicuous, though no official explanation was provided to the development team. Alex and Marcus exchanged concerned glances, clearly sensing that significant developments were occurring beyond their immediate awareness. The atmosphere in our workspace felt charged with anticipation and uncertainty about forthcoming revelations. Lisa convened a brief team meeting to address general concerns about ongoing investigations without revealing specific details about intellectual property violations or patent fraud allegations. Her message emphasized that project work should continue normally while administrative issues were resolved through appropriate channels. The careful phrasing suggested legal advice about communication restrictions during active investigations. The meeting with Michael Davis was scheduled for 10:30 in the executive conference room, where Ryan had originally presented my stolen innovations to the board of directors. The symbolic significance wasn't lost on me as I prepared to present evidence that would systematically dismantle the false narrative Ryan had constructed around his technical leadership and innovation ownership. Michael's demeanor was serious, but supportive as I began presenting comprehensive evidence of Ryan's intellectual theft and fraudulent patent applications. His technical background enabled him to understand the algorithmic complexities involved while appreciating the systematic nature of Ryan's appropriation strategy. The audio recordings were particularly compelling for someone who understood both technical innovation processes and corporate communication dynamics. This is exactly the kind of behavior that undermines innovation culture and intellectual property integrity, Michael observed after reviewing key evidence samples. Patent fraud has serious legal consequences, but the broader issue is maintaining trust in our collaborative development processes and recognition systems. The conversation expanded to discuss potential impacts on TechFlow's reputation, upcoming IPO proceedings, and investor confidence in company intellectual property management. Streamline AI was expected to be a significant factor in company valuation, making accurate attribution of technical innovations crucial for legal compliance and investor relations. Michael indicated that the investigation would likely expand to include external legal counsel specializing in intellectual property fraud, given the potential federal law violations involved in fraudulent patent applications. He also mentioned that the company's board of directors would need to be informed about the situation, particularly regarding any impacts on IPO timeline or investor presentation accuracy. The meeting concluded with Michael expressing appreciation for my thorough documentation and professional handling of an extremely difficult situation. His response provided reassurance that company leadership was committed to supporting accurate intellectual property attribution while taking appropriate action against fraudulent behavior. As I returned to my desk, the weight of recent developments began to settle more fully. The investigation that had begun with my private evidence compilation was now expanding into a formal corporate and legal process with implications extending far beyond individual recognition or career advancement. Ryan's systematic deception had created consequences that would affect multiple stakeholders and potentially reshape how TechFlow approached intellectual property management and collaborative innovation recognition. The afternoon brought news that Ryan had been placed on administrative leave pending completion of the intellectual property investigation. His sudden absence from team meetings and project communications created an immediate shift in workplace dynamics, with remaining team members finally able to discuss their technical contributions without concern about credit appropriation or narrative manipulation. Alex's relief was particularly evident as she began sharing insights about user interface innovations that had been systematically minimized in Ryan's strategic communications with upper management. Marcus and Elena expressed similar experiences, with front-end and database contributions being recharacterized as implementation of strategic vision rather than independent technical innovation. The team's collective realization that we had all been victims of systematic credit appropriation created a sense of solidarity while validating my decision to document evidence comprehensively rather than addressing the situation individually. Ryan's deception had affected everyone's professional recognition and advancement opportunities, making the investigation a matter of team-wide importance rather than personal grievance. The day concluded with an email from TechFlow's legal department requesting additional documentation and formal statement preparation for potential legal proceedings. The systematic nature of Ryan's intellectual theft was being treated as a serious corporate policy violation with potential criminal implications, reflecting the company's commitment to protecting employee intellectual property rights and maintaining ethical business practices. As I prepared to leave the office, the magnitude of what had been accomplished through careful documentation and strategic evidence presentation was becoming clear. What had begun as personal frustration with credit appropriation had evolved into a comprehensive investigation of intellectual property fraud, with implications extending throughout TechFlow's operations and potentially into federal legal proceedings. The vindication felt satisfying, but was tempered by recognition that the formal investigation process would likely continue for weeks or months, requiring ongoing participation in legal proceedings and corporate policy reviews. The immediate crisis had been addressed, but the broader consequences of Ryan's systematic deception would continue unfolding as TechFlow worked to restore accurate attribution of technical innovations and rebuild trust in collaborative development processes. The conference room felt electric with tension as Ryan entered for what he clearly believed would be a routine project status meeting. His confident stride and casual greeting to the assembled group revealed complete ignorance of the comprehensive investigation that had been building around his fraudulent activities for the past 72 hours. I watched his face carefully as he settled into his usual seat, laptop open, ready to continue the charade that had defined our working relationship for months. David Park, TechFlow's CEO, sat at the head of the table with an expression I had never seen before. Flanking him were Michael Davis, Lisa Chen, Sarah Williams from Human Resources, and two individuals I didn't recognize but whose expensive suits and serious demeanor suggested legal representation. The formal atmosphere was unmistakable, yet Ryan seemed oblivious to the gravity of what was about to unfold. "Ryan," David began, his voice carefully controlled, "we've asked you here today to discuss some discrepancies that have come to our attention regarding patent applications and intellectual property attribution for the Streamline AI project." Ryan's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features before settling back into professional composure. "Of course," Ryan replied smoothly. I'm happy to clarify any questions about the patent documentation. The algorithms are quite complex, so I understand if there are technical aspects that need additional explanation." His confidence remained intact, suggesting he believed he could navigate whatever questions arose through strategic explanations and technical misdirection. Michael leaned forward, opening a thick folder containing what I recognized as comprehensive evidence documentation. "Let's start with the predictive scheduling algorithm described in your patent application." David Park leaned back in his chair, his disappointment evident. "Ryan, we have extensive documentation showing that these weren't isolated instances of misspeaking. We have emails, meeting recordings, and presentation materials spanning 8 months where you consistently and deliberately misrepresented the intellectual property contributions of your team members." Sarah Williams opened her own documentation folder. "We've also discovered that you've been conducting unauthorized external communications about proprietary company innovations, potentially violating confidentiality agreements as well as intellectual property policies." The scope of violations was expanding beyond patent fraud to include corporate policy breaches and potential trade secret misappropriation. The second legal representative, a younger man with intense eyes, spoke for the first time. "Mr. Thompson, we represent the individual whose intellectual property you've misappropriated in your patent applications. Our client has extensive documentation proving independent development of every algorithm and innovation you've claimed to have invented." Ryan's eyes darted toward me, finally understanding that I had been systematically documenting his deception. "Jordan," Ryan said, turning to face me directly for the first time since the meeting began, "surely you understand that this is all a misunderstanding. We collaborated closely on the technical development. The innovations emerged from our partnership." His attempt to reframe systematic theft as collaborative development was desperate and unconvincing. I spoke for the first time, my voice steady and clear. "Ryan, I have audio recordings of every team meeting, every technical discussion, and every conversation where you claimed credit for innovations you learned about from my presentations and documentation. There was no partnership. There was systematic appropriation of intellectual property you had no role in developing." Michael opened another section of his evidence folder. "Jordan has provided us with comprehensive documentation showing the true development timeline for every innovation claimed in your patent applications. Code repositories with timestamps, email exchanges, meeting recordings, and technical documentation all contradict your claims of invention and development." Patricia Monroe addressed Ryan directly. "Mr. Thompson, the evidence against you is overwhelming and documented across multiple independent sources. Patent fraud carries potential penalties of up to 5 years in federal prison and substantial financial penalties. We strongly recommend that you consult with criminal defense counsel before making any additional statements." The legal warning seemed to break Ryan's remaining composure completely. "I never intended for this to go so far," he said, his voice cracking. "The pressure to demonstrate strategic value, to prove my worth to the company, it just escalated gradually. I know I made mistakes, but I never meant to commit fraud." David Park's expression remained stern. "Ryan, your actions weren't mistakes. They were calculated deceptions that could have cost Jordan and other team members millions of dollars in potential patent royalties and equity compensation. You systematically stole intellectual property and attempted to profit from innovations you had no role in creating." Sarah Williams began reading from a prepared statement. "Mr. Thompson, effective immediately, you are terminated from employment with TechFlow Solutions for gross misconduct, including intellectual property theft, patent fraud, violation of confidentiality agreements, and misrepresentation of company innovations to external parties. Your access to company systems has been revoked, and security will escort you from the premises following this meeting." The finality of the termination announcement seemed to shock Ryan into silence. His shoulders slumped as the consequences of months of systematic deception crystallized into career destruction and potential criminal prosecution. The confident project manager who had stolen credit for my innovations was revealed as someone whose entire professional advancement had been built on fraudulent claims. Patricia Monroe continued the legal discussion. "Mr. Thompson, we will be filing formal complaints with the Patent and Trademark Office to have your fraudulent applications rejected and potentially referred for criminal investigation. We will also be pursuing civil litigation for damages related to intellectual property theft and potential interference with our clients' career advancement and financial opportunities." The younger legal representative added, "We have evidence that your fraudulent claims have been used in external job applications and professional networking activities. We will be notifying relevant parties about the intellectual property violations and patent fraud allegations to ensure that your deceptive practices don't continue to affect industry hiring and professional recognition." Ryan made one final attempt to minimize the scope of his deception. "Please understand that I never intended to harm Jordan or other team members. I genuinely believed that my strategic leadership contributions warranted recognition alongside the technical innovations. Perhaps I was overzealous in claiming credit, but there was no malicious intent." Michael's response was swift and decisive. "Ryan, malicious intent is irrelevant when the actions involve systematic intellectual property theft and federal patent fraud. Your recorded statements and documented behavior clearly show deliberate deception rather than overzealous credit claiming. The legal consequences will reflect the seriousness of your violations regardless of claimed intent." David Park stood up, signaling the conclusion of the formal meeting. "Ryan, you have 30 minutes to collect personal belongings from your SAO. Workspace under security supervision. All company equipment, documentation, and electronic devices must remain on the premises. You are prohibited from contacting current or former team members about this matter, and any violation of these restrictions will result in additional legal action." As Ryan left the conference room accompanied by security personnel, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The tension that had defined months of collaboration under his deceptive leadership evaporated, replaced by a sense of relief and validation that justice was finally being served. The comprehensive investigation had proven that systematic documentation and strategic evidence presentation could overcome even sophisticated manipulation and false narrative construction. Patricia Monroe turned to address me directly. "Jordan, your meticulous documentation made this investigation possible and provided irrefutable evidence of intellectual property theft. The audio recordings in particular were crucial for proving deliberate deception rather than simple miscommunication or collaborative ambiguity." David Park expressed the company's appreciation for my professionalism throughout the investigation process. "Jordan, your handling of this situation exemplifies the highest standards of intellectual integrity and professional conduct. TechFlow is committed to ensuring that your innovations receive proper recognition and that you receive appropriate compensation for the value you've created." The meeting concluded with discussions about correcting patent applications, updating project recognition documentation, and implementing enhanced intellectual property protection procedures to prevent similar violations in the future. The Streamline AI project would continue with accurate attribution of technical contributions while serving as a case study for improving collaborative development oversight and innovation protection. As the legal representatives and executives departed, I remained in the conference room for several minutes, processing the magnitude of what had just occurred. The systematic intellectual theft that had begun with casual credit appropriation in team meetings had culminated in federal patent fraud charges and complete career destruction for the perpetrator. The comprehensive documentation I had maintained throughout the development process had provided the foundation for decisive legal action and corporate policy enforcement. The vindication felt profound, but was tempered by recognition of the broader implications for workplace collaboration and intellectual property protection. Ryan's sophisticated deception techniques had nearly succeeded in permanently transferring ownership of innovations worth potentially millions of dollars. Only systematic evidence compilation and strategic presentation had prevented the complete appropriation of technical contributions that represented months of intensive creative work. The afternoon brought a series of follow-up meetings with various company departments as TechFlow worked to correct the false narratives Ryan had constructed and restore accurate attribution of technical innovations. The process was complex but thorough, ensuring that patent applications, intellectual property documentation, and corporate communications reflected the true development history of our breakthrough algorithms and system architecture. Alex, Marcus, and Elena each participated in individual interviews to document their technical contributions and confirm the collaborative development processes that Ryan had systematically misrepresented in his communications with upper management. Their testimonies provided additional validation of the evidence, while ensuring that all team members received appropriate recognition for their innovations and creative problem-solving. The day concluded with a team meeting where Michael Davis announced that the Streamline AI project would continue with enhanced recognition procedures and improved intellectual property protection protocols. The investigation had revealed the need for better oversight of collaborative development projects and stronger safeguards against systematic credit appropriation and innovation theft. As I prepared to leave the office, the weight of recent events began to settle more completely. The months of secret documentation and strategic evidence compilation had culminated in comprehensive vindication and justice for intellectual property theft. The systematic approach that characterized my technical work had proven equally effective in exposing systematic deception and ensuring accountability for fraudulent behavior. The experience had transformed my understanding of workplace dynamics and the importance of protecting intellectual contributions in collaborative environments. The same attention to detail that produced breakthrough algorithmic innovations had also provided the foundation for defeating sophisticated manipulation and ensuring that technical creativity received proper recognition and legal protection. 6 months after Ryan's termination and the resolution of the patent fraud investigation, I stood in the executive boardroom once again, but this time the atmosphere couldn't have been more different. The same mahogany table that had witnessed his elaborate theft of my innovations now hosted a celebration of legitimate achievement and proper recognition. David Park raised his glass in a toast, surrounded by board members, investors, and the IoT development team that had actually created the Streamline AI breakthrough. To Jordan Martinez, David announced, whose innovative algorithms and unwavering integrity have positioned TechFlow as the leader in predictive business automation. Today, we celebrate not just technical excellence, but the values that make genuine innovation possible. The applause felt genuine and well-earned, a stark contrast to the hollow recognition that Ryan had manipulated through deception and manipulation. The patent applications had been corrected and resubmitted with accurate attribution, listing me as the primary inventor of the predictive scheduling algorithms and behavioral analysis techniques that formed the core of Streamline AI's competitive advantage. The legal process had been thorough but ultimately straightforward, since my comprehensive documentation provided irrefutable evidence of invention timelines and development processes that clearly established my intellectual property rights. TechFlow's IPO had proceeded successfully, with Streamline AI featured prominently in investor presentations as evidence of the company's innovative capabilities and strong intellectual property portfolio. The accurate attribution of technical innovations had actually enhanced investor confidence, demonstrating robust internal oversight and commitment to ethical practices that distinguish TechFlow from competitors facing similar intellectual property challenges. My equity compensation had been adjusted to reflect my actual contributions to company valuation, resulting in financial recognition that would have been impossible under Ryan's fraudulent narrative. The difference represented hundreds of thousands of dollars in immediate compensation and potentially millions in long-term equity value as Streamline AI achieved its projected market penetration and revenue growth. The personal satisfaction extended far beyond financial recognition. though those benefits were certainly meaningful. The validation of systematic documentation and strategic evidence presentation had transformed my approach to professional relationships and intellectual property protection. The experience had taught me that ethical behavior combined with meticulous record-keeping could overcome even sophisticated manipulation and institutional bias. Alex had been promoted to senior developer, with her user interface innovations receiving proper recognition in patent applications and company communications. Her confidence had blossomed as she received direct access to upper management and opportunities to lead interface design for TechFlow's next-generation products. The promotion represented validation that technical excellence could be recognized and rewarded when protected from systematic credit appropriation. Marcus and Elena had also received significant recognition for their front-end and database contributions, with both developers seeing substantial increases in project responsibilities and compensation. The accurate attribution of their innovations had opened advancement opportunities that had been blocked by Ryan's strategic narrative manipulation and false claims of comprehensive technical leadership. The transformation in team dynamics was remarkable. Without Ryan's constant credit appropriation and strategic positioning, authentic collaboration flourished. Team meetings became genuine exchanges of ideas rather than opportunities for intellectual theft. Technical discussions focused on solving problems rather than positioning individual contributions for potential appropriation by manipulative colleagues. The Streamline AI project had exceeded all performance projections, generating over $3 million in first-year revenue and attracting enterprise clients who appreciated the sophisticated automation capabilities. The success validated the technical innovations that Ryan had tried to steal, while demonstrating the market value of genuine algorithmic breakthroughs developed through systematic research and creative problem-solving. TechFlow had implemented comprehensive intellectual property protection procedures based on lessons learned from the investigation. All collaborative development projects now included enhanced documentation requirements, regular attribution reviews, and systematic oversight of external communications about proprietary innovations. The new procedures ensured that future intellectual property theft would be detected quickly and addressed decisively. The company's commitment to protecting employee innovations had enhanced recruitment and retention significantly. Top technical talent was attracted to TechFlow's reputation for recognizing genuine contributions and maintaining ethical standards in competitive development environments. The intellectual property protection policies had become a competitive advantage in Austin's dynamic technology sector. My role within TechFlow had evolved substantially, expanding beyond individual technical contributions to include intellectual property oversight and innovation protection leadership. The expertise gained through documenting and exposing systematic intellectual theft had proven valuable for developing policies and procedures that protected other developers from similar exploitation. The experience had also enhanced my technical reputation within Austin's broader technology community. Speaking engagements and industry publications had featured my algorithmic innovations and the systematic approach to protecting intellectual property rights. The recognition extended beyond TechFlow to establish credibility as both a technical innovator and an advocate for ethical practices in collaborative development environments. Professional relationships with colleagues throughout the industry had deepened as news of the intellectual property investigation circulated through technology networks. Other developers shared similar experiences with credit appropriation and strategic manipulation, creating a community of professionals committed to protecting innovative contributions and maintaining ethical standards in competitive workplace environments. The legal proceedings against Ryan had concluded with a plea agreement that included restitution payments, prohibition from filing patent applications for 5 years, and mandatory disclosure of intellectual property violations to future employers. The criminal penalties were relatively modest, but the professional consequences had been devastating for someone whose career had been built on fraudulent claims of technical leadership. Industry blacklisting had made Ryan unemployable in technical roles throughout Austin's technology sector. Word of the patent fraud and systematic intellectual theft had spread quickly through professional networks, effectively ending his career in technology project management. The comprehensive documentation of his deceptive practices had created a permanent record that prevented him from continuing his pattern of exploitation elsewhere. The broader implications of the case had influenced intellectual property policies at other technology companies throughout Austin and beyond. Industry publications had featured detailed analyses of the systematic appropriation techniques and recommended countermeasures for protecting collaborative innovation from strategic manipulation. The case had become a cautionary tale about the importance of maintaining ethical standards and protecting genuine technical contributions. My relationship with Lucas had deepened throughout the challenging period of investigation and vindication. His emotional support and strategic advice had been invaluable during moments when the psychological burden of maintaining professional composure while secretly documenting systematic betrayal had felt overwhelming. The experience had strengthened our friendship while demonstrating the importance of having trusted allies during difficult professional challenges. The mentorship opportunities that emerged from my enhanced reputation had been particularly rewarding. Young developers throughout Austin's technology community sought guidance about protecting intellectual property and navigating competitive workplace dynamics. Sharing lessons learned from the systematic documentation process and strategic evidence, presentation had helped other professionals avoid similar exploitation while building stronger ethical standards throughout the industry. TechFlow's corporate culture had evolved significantly in response to the intellectual property investigation and subsequent policy improvements. The company had become known for supporting genuine innovation while maintaining zero tolerance for credit appropriation and strategic manipulation. The cultural transformation had attracted top talent and enhanced productivity by creating environments where authentic collaboration could flourish without fear of intellectual theft. The success of Streamline AI had opened opportunities for expanding into related market segments and developing next-generation automation solutions. My algorithmic innovations had proven adaptable to various business sectors beyond small business workflow optimization, creating potential revenue streams that could sustain TechFlow's growth trajectory for years. The intellectual property portfolio that Ryan had tried to steal was becoming the foundation for long-term competitive advantage. Speaking at technology conferences and industry events had become a regular part of my professional responsibilities. Presentations about predictive scheduling algorithms and behavioral analysis techniques attracted audiences of developers, business leaders, and intellectual property professionals interested in understanding both technical innovations and protection strategies. The recognition extended far beyond Austin to national and international technology communities. The academic implications of my algorithmic work had also gained attention from university researchers studying machine learning applications in business automation. Collaboration opportunities with graduate programs and research institutions had emerged, providing chances to mentor students while advancing the theoretical foundations underlying practical innovations. The academic recognition validated the depth and significance of technical contributions that Ryan had attempted to appropriate. Patent licensing opportunities had generated substantial additional revenue for TechFlow, while establishing industry standards for predictive business automation. Companies throughout various sectors were implementing solutions based on my algorithmic frameworks, creating royalty streams that enhanced both company valuation and individual compensation. The intellectual property that had been threatened by fraudulent appropriation was becoming increasingly valuable through legitimate commercialization. The transformation in my professional confidence had been profound. Successfully exposing and defeating systematic intellectual property theft had validated my technical abilities while demonstrating that ethical behavior and meticulous documentation could overcome even sophisticated manipulation. The experience had transformed challenges into opportunities for growth and leadership within TechFlow and the broader technology community. personal fulfillment had increased substantially as authentic. Recognition replaced the frustration of watching innovations being systematically appropriated by manipulative colleagues. Working in environments where technical contributions received proper attribution and compensation made every project more meaningful and rewarding. The contrast with previous experiences under Ryan's deceptive leadership was striking and constant. The financial security provided by accurate equity compensation and patent royalties had enabled lifestyle improvements and long-term planning that would have been impossible under Ryan's fraudulent narrative. The difference represented not just immediate comfort, but freedom to pursue technical challenges and professional opportunities based on interest rather than financial necessity. Industry relationships had expanded dramatically as recognition of my innovations spread through technology networks and professional associations. Collaboration opportunities with leading companies and research institutions had emerged, creating possibilities for advancing algorithmic research while maintaining strong connections to practical business applications. The recognition had opened doors that Ryan's deception had nearly closed permanently. The mentorship role had become increasingly important as younger developers sought guidance about protecting intellectual property and maintaining ethical standards in competitive environments. Sharing systematic approaches to documentation and strategic evidence presentation had helped other professionals build stronger foundations for career advancement while contributing to improved industry standards for collaboration and innovation. Recognition. TechFlow's continued success with Streamline AI and related products had validated the long-term value of protecting genuine technical innovations from systematic appropriation. The company had become a model for other organizations seeking to balance competitive dynamics with ethical standards and intellectual property protection. The transformation had enhanced both company reputation and individual career prospects for all team members. The ongoing development of next-generation automation solutions had provided opportunities to expand my algorithmic research while building on the foundation established through the Streamline AI breakthrough. Advanced machine learning techniques and predictive modeling approaches were opening new possibilities for business automation that could revolutionize operational efficiency across numerous industry sectors. Recognition within Austin's technology community had led to advisory roles with startup companies and established firms seeking to implement predictive automation solutions. The consulting opportunities provided chances to apply algorithmic expertise while helping other organizations avoid intellectual property challenges and maintain ethical development practices. The work was both professionally rewarding and financially beneficial. The experience had fundamentally transformed my understanding of workplace dynamics and the importance of maintaining comprehensive documentation in collaborative environments. The systematic approach that had exposed Ryan's deception had become standard practice for all professional activities, ensuring that future contributions would be protected regardless of political dynamics or manipulative colleagues. As I reflected on the journey from systematic intellectual theft to complete vindication and enhanced recognition, the importance of persistence and ethical standards became crystal clear. The months of secret documentation and strategic evidence compilation had required significant emotional discipline, but the results had transformed both individual career prospects and broader industry practices around intellectual property protection. The Streamline AI project continued generating success stories as small businesses throughout the country implemented the automation solutions and achieved remarkable efficiency improvements. Customer testimonials and case studies provided ongoing validation of the technical innovations while demonstrating practical benefits that extended far beyond abstract algorithmic achievements. The real-world impact made all the challenges worthwhile. Looking toward the future, the foundation established through defending intellectual property rights and achieving accurate recognition had created possibilities for continued technical innovation and professional growth that seemed limitless. The systematic approach to documentation and strategic thinking that had defeated Ryan's deception was proving equally valuable for advancing legitimate career objectives and contributing to positive industry evolution. The transformation from victim of intellectual property theft to recognized technical leader and industry advocate had been complete and permanent. The experience had taught valuable lessons about protecting innovations while building ethical foundations for continued success in competitive professional environments. The vindication had been worth every difficult moment of maintaining professional composure while systematically documenting systematic betrayal. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.